Done.
Richard, could you tell them which version of Redshift to use?
Okay, you want Redshift 2,
If you can get it.
because Redshift 3 doesn't have Sirius in it for some reason.
Yeah.
Weird.
Well, we're up to Redshift 5 now, and I don't know how that is.
We have I like Redshift 2 because what you want is the azimuth and elevation above and below the horizon, and Redshift 2 we know has it. And that's the key. I mean, there's only what? You showed 4 angles that we're looking at.
Yeah.
19.5 above, 33 above, 19.5 below, 33 below.
And the horizon.
And then the horizon.
meridian.
And then you look at latitude, longitude, you look at the time, you calculate with Redshift the angles above and below
You
the
just
horizon.
click on Sirius or click on one of the belt stars, and it tells you at a given date, a given time, and a given place exactly what the altitude is above the horizon. And you got to give a little leeway. I mean, when I call something a hit, if it's off by half a degree from 33, but it passes through that in the next minute or something like that, then I'll say, okay, it's a hit. It's actually at 33 degrees. It's close because
Because all science is a precision measurement. It's not dead on. It's
so I give a little fudge factor in there,
or bandwidth.
but not much. Yeah.
I don't have, first I want to thank you guys for willingly stepping in the biggest pile of you-know-what on this planet, stomping on it. But I don't have a series of questions as much as I do, just a couple things to ping you guys with. I was wondering, Jordan hasn't said much, I was wondering if you could expand on the etymology of the term Hollywood for us.
That's a cool question.
I first became aware of that in a book called Flicker. It was written by a man who was very highly placed in Hollywood. The book is still out there. You can get it Flicker, and he tells a lot of interesting stuff about Hollywood that most people will never know, but or never suspect. But he talked about how the Celtic Druids were a very powerful people, authorities in Europe for so many centuries, and that one of the most important symbols in the Celtic Druid order of power was a magic wand, like Merlin the magician with his magic wand. And that magic wands were always made out of the wood of a holly tree. It was made out of Hollywood. And so the very symbol of Hollywood is a Celtic Druid establishment. And unless you understand the implications of that, you're never going to figure out who these people are at the very top of the world and what they're doing. But Hollywood is simply the wood of a holly tree, which was used by the Celtics because it was and there are pictures and paintings in Europe and some of the big churches in France and Germany in particular that show Jesus healing people with wands, with a magic wand. I'm telling you that there is a whole story behind the Celtic Druids. And this is the Druid country. America is a very Druid country. And once you understand the bloodlines of the Druids, the magical system, the religion of the Druids, everything starts falling into place, and you think, my God, man, we've got some serious problems here because we haven't even begun to scrape the surface of the religious establishment that's really operating here.
Yeah,
But it's not a conventional religion in the sense of Methodists or Presbyterians or even Jewish religion.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that what you said about Jesus, I think that before the Council of Nicaea, he is always depicted when he's performing his miracles with an instrumentality, with a wand. You know, he's always depicted that. And then after the Council of Nicaea, well, we can't have that in there. So
I have an
it's
addendum. Okay? You have to also track the life and times of Jack Parsons. When Jack Parsons was in essence kicked out of JPL, when the army came in, brought all the Nazis in, and he started playing around with the state of Israel, which I think is ultimately why he was killed. He was murdered because of all the Nazis that invaded this country under the aegis of the army and then NASA. He, in order to make a living, since he couldn't make a living with the company that he and the Gauss guys had created, he had to look at where his pyrotechnic skills could be utilized, and he could put bread on the table. He went to Hollywood. He became a special effects consultant to a lot of Hollywood films and Hollywood producers and directors, and he continued having these meetings, these coven meetings and all that. And what, in essence, I believe is that the whole Crowley-Parsons magical blend ultimately took over Hollywood. And again, if you're looking to control the cultural perspective of a people, you must control the media. Particularly, you don't really care about newspapers or news programs. You want their fictional dreams. You want their archetypal projections of themselves on that big silver magic screen. And that's where the connection really meets the road, because there's an interesting alliance between the secret magical side of JPL and NASA and Hollywood. So when our friend here said that we're talking about Hollywood films and it's irrelevant, I'm sorry, it's absolutely germane, and you'll never figure out this puzzle box unless you understand the role of what you're seeing every night on television or in the movies.
Well, and we have Jay right here, who's the guy who wrote the article showing that the monolith in 2001, Kubrick designed to be the screen, right? That the screen is the initiation. The film itself is the monolith.
Yeah, but you know, Jay, there's some Sumerian scholars that don't agree with that interpretation.
Okay.
Getting back to Hollywood a bit, it's not really Hollywood, it's radio, but do you guys get the impression, or do you have any information concerning whether H.G. Wells played an active, knowing role in creating War of the Worlds for the manipulation by the Brookings Report?
Yeah,
Orson Welles.
Yeah, actually,
Orson Welles,
yeah.
excuse me.
As a matter of fact, I think we got this factoid into the book. The Brookings Report, in fact, cited specifically another report from Princeton University, which specifically gave the impression that the whole War of the Worlds broadcast was actually an experiment by them to see what kind of reaction there would be with the idea of an alien presence or, you know, an alien invasion in the Earth. So that's actually in there, and the Brookings Report was heavily based on that. And ultimately, it was. Speaking of media, it came out when John Glenn did his appearance on the Frasier program in about 1999, and he specifically talked about how that they were afraid of the War of the Worlds type stuff. So we had to keep quiet. So anyway, yeah, that was specifically in
But there's another footnote. Jay?
Jordan has something I want
Okay,
to hear.
well, all right, we'll let Jordan go, and then I...
Well, go ahead, what were you going to say?
About Orson?
Yes. Oh, no, there's a much more direct link, which actually, when Tom Cruise movie came out, I wrote this series, figuring there had to be a pony in there somewhere, right? The old joke? And I found it. Orson Welles worked at a studio, a CBS studio in New York City. And I don't remember offhand the number of the floor or the address or all that. But what I do remember is that years later, during the Kennedy administration, the Joint Chiefs of Staff commissioned a project to study how to destabilize Castro. And ultimately, the president rejected this idea, and it was called Project Northwoods.
Operation Northwoods.
Huh? Say again?
Operation
Northwoods. And it basically involved U.S. assets shooting down civilian airliners, maybe compromising one of the Mercury astronauts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and blaming it on Castro so we could invade. Okay, retro the film. It turns out that Operation Northwoods was headquartered in exactly the same building and office that Orson Welles did his famous Mercury Theater radio play that night. Now, if that isn't a connection, then you look at Orson Welles' career, and it kind of looks like George Lucas. You get a guy that one day can't, sell hamburgers, and is basically playing a 2-bit radio thing, and the next day he's a Hollywood mogul. He produces Citizen Kane. He can do no wrong. My model, again, is that they pick these key figures. They bring them along, and then the payoff is they create something for them that the rest of us are supposed to buy, and that Northwood connection to Orson Welles, to me, is stunning.